Good to go.
Good morning from India to everyone present with us. Time is elapsing quick, and we are already into the penultimate day, that is day 10 of IBWGST 2021. It is immensely pleasing to see young students actively participating in all the sessions so far. I'm certain that the extremely resourceful knowledge and information shared by the stalwarts and pioneers will greatly improve their grasp of important topics in seismology and tectonics. Professor Kalasan Singh, the Director of Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. Sir, I welcome you to this forum. May I request Dr. Sinmoy Raskor to proceed with the agenda of today's function. Over to Dr. Sinmoy.
Thank you, sir. We would like to welcome our today's speaker, Dr. Kalasan Singh, sir, for the first lecture of this morning. Dr. Singh will deliver his talk on state-of-the-art seismic techniques for advanced modeling and interpretation, solution to some geoscientific challenges. But before we proceed, may I request our session chairman, Professor J.R. Kyle, sir, for his initial remark. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chinmoy. It's my great pleasure to extend hearty welcome to Dr. Kalasan Singh, Director, Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology, for today's lecture in this workshop. Dr. Kalasan Singh is my good brother, good friend, big support, and I respect him as one of the most eminent geophysicists of the country in exploration geophysics, in solid earth geophysics, and he is the pioneer geophysicist of the country in gas hydrate exploration. Hearty welcome again, Dr. Singh. We look forward to listening to your very enlightening lecture. Thank you so much. Welcome. Over to Chinmoy.
Thank you, sir. Now I'm going to briefly introduce our today's speaker to our participants. Dr. Singh is serving as a director of Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology, Dehradun, since 2019. Before that, he has served as chief scientist at National Geophysical Research Institute, Hyderabad. He has also served as guest faculty at different reputed institutions. His core research interests include exploration of marine gas hydrates, imaging subvolcanic sediments, evolution of sedimentary basins, geotechnic implications of Indian provinces, understanding earthquake processes in plate interior, delineation of plate geometry in subduction zone, inversion modeling and processing of seismic data, advanced interpretation of 3D seismic data, etc. Dr. Singh obtained his PhD in 1995 from Osmania University, Hyderabad, and then completed postdoctoral research at Cambridge University, UK, and Rice University, United States. He is a member of several geological and geophysical forums such as AGU, AAPZ, SEZ, AOGS, IGU, IGC, GSI, etc. Dr. Singh has been bestowed with number of prestigious awards and fellowships such as Sri Ram Srinivasan Award 2018 by Association of Exploration Geophysicists, Decennial Award 2016 by IGU, Annie Talwani Memorial Prize 2014 by IGU, Best Paper Award by International Association of Gondwana Research, N.N. Chatterjee Award by Geological Society of India, National Mineral Award by Ministry of Mines, Government of India, Swarna Jayanti Project Award 2001 by DST, Department of Science and Technology, Young Scientist Award by CSIR, etc. Dr. Singh has published more than 270 publications to his name in journals of national and international repute. He has also served as editorial board member of several international journals. So now, with this short introduction, may I request Dr. Singh to take this digital forum and enlighten us with his lecture. Over to you, sir.
My slide is visible.
Yes, sir.
So very good morning to our Honorable Chairman, Dr. Kayal Saab, Santanu, Chinmoy, and all the distinguished participants, those who are attending this lecture online. So it has been already told that I will be talking on some of the advanced tools that are used for the modeling and interpretation of seismic data. I'll be taking some of the challenges and how we can address those challenges using this active source seismological methodology. These many days in this second international virtual workshop, I think a lot of people have talked on the passive seismology. I may be the first person to talk on active seismology, which has great advantage over the passive seismology in terms of resolution of the subsurface structure, subsurface properties. However, it's a bit costly affair compared to the passive seismology. So both has certain advantages and disadvantages. In the coming 45 to 50 minutes, I will cover some of the aspects, and that has been divided into several parts. We are talking about seismic experiment, active seismic experiment, but why do we need that active seismic experiment? In that, I'll be briefly touch upon near vertical reflection profiling versus wide angle reflection profiling. And then I will show some of the implications on geotectonics over several parts of Indian landmass from wide angle reflection study. Also briefly touch upon whenever we build model, how we can assess that model is correct. And then some of the recent tools and their applications I will be also showing. People have shown a lot of interest on the seismic tomography that has two parts, one travel time tomography and full waveform tomography. I'll show some of the examples of that also. And then very, very important application of artificial intelligence to geoscience data to address some of the challenges related to seismic interpretation. And then finally, I will put some concluding remarks with acknowledgement. If we look into the several geophysical tools, seismic is the most suited geophysical tool that can be used for delineation of accurate subsurface structure, properties, features, and this has been extensively used for the understanding of geotectonics and basin evolutions, comprehending earthquake processes, exploration of hydrocarbons and coal seams, identification of mineralized prospects, groundwater contamination, etc. This is very, very important that we should have some methodology, we should have some techniques by which we'll be acquire data on the surface, and from the surface acquired data based on state of the art processing, analysis, modeling, inversion tool will derive some sort of subsurface informations, and that will provide encyclopedic knowledge so that some of the decisions can be taken by the industrialist, some of the wise knowledge can be added to our scientific knowledge, as well as various several other applications we do generally from the geophysical investigation made on the surface and then image and decipher at subsurface. I'll say that there are two approaches for the seismic data acquisition. One is called near vertical reflection NVR, where we shot at this point O and then record at very near vertical range. That's why it is called near vertical reflection data. But when we fire over here and record at the wide angle range using seismometer, we call the wide angle reflection and WAR data. So this is only a ray theory schematic diagram. in the offshore experiment that fire from the ship and then record at the steamer at the near vertical range, or record at the ocean bottom seismometer by wide angle seismic experiments. Similarly, this is one sort of ray theory experiment or schematic diagram for the land. So when we have the near vertical reflection, we get this type of data, and mostly it is multifold data. That means same reflection point is covered multiple times at different source receiver distances. But in the case of wide angle reflection data, we get only single fold data, but however, we record at the very large distance, and because of the recording of the large distance, we have very good control on the velocity. And this is the velocity tomogram that has been derived from the wide angle reflection data. And this is the near vertical reflection from which we get this type of subsurface image, which shows very good structural resolution. Therefore, if we have coincident near vertical and wide angle reflection data, we will be having very good control on the velocity parameter, as well as we will have very good control from the near vertical reflection data on the structural. So therefore, having both data sets will have very good control on both velocity as well as structure. That's why both type of experiments are used in the investigation of subsurface, whether it is related to any exploration of hydrocarbons, whether it is related to delineating subsurface features. Today, I'll take you that active source experiment over the Indian landmass that has been done since 1972. And this experiment was first launched by the Deep Seismic Group of National Geophysical Research Institute under the stewardship of late Dr. K.L. Kaila. There was very eminent persons who was involved into the processing, Dr. Vijay Krishna, Dr. H.C. Tiwari, and these are the profile, deep seismic sounding profiling that were carried out over the Indian subcontinent. This has been shown by a very simplified geological map and superimposition of various deep seismic sounding profiling. You can see that major part of the Indian subcontinent has been covered in the Bengal Basin, in Mahanadi Basin, in the Kadapa Basin, southern Granulite terrain, Narmada Zone lineament, Kutch, Saurashtra offshore, Delhi Aravalli fold belt, northwest Himalayan region. And you can also see there are some sort of record has been done into the Kadapa basins. So from these experiments, what we could delineate about the Indian crust, about the crustal properties like seismic velocities of Indian landmass, I will briefly present upon you. This is one of the example I am showing that how seismic experiment is useful to image very finite details of the subsurface, very finite image of the subsurface. This is one of the example I am showing over the Central Indian Tectonic Zone. Seismic experiment had been carried out, and this is the one part of the data sets that is in the Central Indian Tectonic Zone and Bastar Craton. What we can see that to the same data, when we utilized the conventional processing technique, those who are aware of seismic data processing, they understand by conventional seismic data processing means what. So once we apply this conventional seismic data processing to the data set, we are able to image this type of structure into this Central Indian Tectonic Zone. And to the same data, when we applied later on the advanced tool, it is called Common Reflection Surface Track. You can see the bottom one is the later advanced tool and the top one is the conventional tool. You can see a lot of improvement of the seismic images. So that shows over the passage of time, there has been technological advancement, and if we apply this technology to the vintage data, we will be able to delineate some of the features which are not evident or which are not delineated properly based on the conventional tools. Mostly, we define the reflectivity and loss of reflectivity, that particular boundary is the Moho or crust mantle boundary. And you can see the crust mantle boundary has been very well delineated by the advanced tool over the conventional tool, as well as some of the dipping reflectors also very well imaged by this advanced tool over the conventional tool. So this is some sort of application of the advanced tool to the vintage data I am showing over here. And this sort of image we can get by the passive active source seismic experiment over any part of the country. This is another example I am showing in the Delhi Aravalli fault belt region, Nagar Jhalawar profile. This is the northern part, this profile, and this is the southern part, this profile. And what we can see that beneath the Sanmata complex and Mangalwar complex, we have been able to delineate very well a deep-seated thrust zone, Jahajpur thrust. And that again provides some sort of implications to the mineralized prospect and also understanding the crustal evolution of this region. And we can see very nicely the Moho has been imaged. Already I defined Moho means there will be crustal reflectivity and upper mantle not reflectivity. So upper mantle is not that much reflective. So that interface between reflective crust and non-reflective mantle is the Moho, and that has been well delineated. So this way we can see a lot of other dipping reflectors. So these are all useful information that can be used to understand the tectonics, to understand some of the evolution of the area. This is the third example I am showing over the Dharwar Craton. And you can see the seismic profile has passed over various geological units. There the Bababudan Greenstone Belt, older gneiss, Chitradurga's Greenstone Belt, younger gneisses, close-packed granite, younger gneisses. And we can see on the surface that deep seismic profiling has crossed each geological unit. What is their subsurface disposition? What sort of subsurface structure exists into this Dharwar Craton? For that we had this experiment, and by doing travel time tomography, we are able to delineate the structure up to a depth of 10 kilometers. And what we can see from this velocity structure, that lot of fold structure have been delineated, and this fold structure is an indication of the compressive regime of the Dharwar Craton. And we can see how the geological contact in the subsurface also appearing. And after a depth of 8 kilometers, we see the folded nature of the uppermost crust or upper crust is seized, and that shows the zone into this region of we call detachment. So this way, by doing wide angle seismic experiment, we are able to understand that this region is under compressive. The region has this fold nature up to 8 kilometer depth. After that, we see the detachment, and it provides a lot of geological implications. And as well as we can see how the contact, that geological contact, subsurface wise, they are disposed. This is another example I am showing from the West Bengal Basin. This is the 3 east-west profile, 1 north-south profile. And the purpose of the deep seismic sounding was to delineate the basement configuration and the overlying sedimentary formations. From the travel time tomography, along this 3 line, we are able to make this pseudo 3-dimensional picture of the subsurface, and we can see that southeast ward there has been tremendous increase into the sediment thickness up to a thickness of 16 kilometers. We can also see that the basement is almost exposed into the western part, and if you come towards the east, the basement is deepening steeply, and suddenly there is a self slope type of configuration, shelf break, and we define that a hinge zone. That hinge zone also has been delineated. This region has experienced the Rajmahal trap, and we see that at subsurface the Rajmahal trap, what is the configuration of the subsurface Rajmahal trap into this region. This has also been exposed onto the some part into this region we can see over here. And how do they exist into the subsurface? By doing this wide angle seismic experiment, we have been able to understand how this thing happened. And if we try to understand more, then it gives some sort of implications that when it got separated from the Gondwana and from the combined Antarctica Australia, and that evidences that in terms of subsurface delineation of the Rajmahal trap, as well as that hinge zone indicate probably it has been ripped, it has got rifted from that particular combined Antarctic Australia region. Another example I am showing from the Mahanadi Delta region. These are the profiling we did, both travel time modeling as well as gravity modeling. And from this study, we see a large thickness of the high velocity and high density 2.9 gram per cc, 7.1 kilometer per centimeter velocity layer has been delineated at the base of the crust, and which is nothing but the presence of the underplating material. We can also see that indication has come from this 7.5 kilometer per second high velocity and 3.05 and 7.5 kilometer per second velocity has been deposited at the base of the crust. This is the MOHO, 8 kilometer per second velocity. And we have given some sort of schematic understanding how the plume head and that underplating took place into this region. We have also seen some of the evidences of that seals as well as dikes into the upper crustal layer into this region. So this way, from the deep seismic experiment, we delineate the subsurface and infer the geotectonic implications of the regions wherever we make this type of study. So this also has a bearing to the breakup of the Gondwana land. Because of that, this lot of underplating or magmatic material has come up and got deposited at the base of the crust. This is another example I am showing from the southern granulite terrain. This is the profile. There are two parts. One part is here, other part is here. The seismic reflection profiling, this part I am showing over here, and we can see that it dips towards south. This is north to south, it dips towards south. And if you look into this part, this part, it dips from south to north. So that's why this study, this deep seismic reflection profiling study, shows oppositely dipping reflector, and it provides implications that the southern granite terrain has been evolved by the collision tectonics. So this way you can see a lot of geotectonic provinces of India has been covered by seismic experiment, and each experiment has given different sort of information of different geotectonic unit or provinces of India. This is one more example I am showing across the Narmada-Son lineament. We have seen Narmada-Son lineament. Across the Narmada-Son lineament, we had one deep seismic sounding profiling. By doing the tomographic result, we got this type of velocity model. And what it shows, not only deep-seated faults, it shows that entire crust as well as MOHO have been upward. And we can also see mafic materials from the upper mantle have intruded into the crust. There are a lot of structural and velocity inhomogeneities, and these structural and velocity inhomogeneities have caused instability into this region. And all of you know that we had Jabalpur earthquake 1997 in this region, and this crustal inhomogeneity and deep-seated fault have played important role for the release of accumulated strain in the form of earthquake 1997. So this way we can understand not only geotectonics, we can also get some sort of information on the earthquake processes, particularly into the interior or plate interior or intraplate earthquake. This is one of the example I am showing from the Kadapa basin. By doing again seismic experiment, and doing the modeling, we found out the crust into that region along this profile is very, very heterogeneous. And this intracatonic proterozoic Kadapa basin, it shows only 4 kilometer thick sediments. And we can also see deep-seated faults, as well as we can see the deep-seated eastern boundary fault that has demarcated these eastern Ghat belts as well as from Nellore schist belt. So this is the Kadapa basin, which is bracketed by two deep-seated faults, this side one, that side one, and we can see that almost crust have been exhumed into this region, and this has shown a lot of implications to understand what exactly happened into this Kadapa basin. Though Kadapa basin, east of the Kadapa basin appeared to be an aggregate orogeny terrain, beneath which we can see the lower crustal material 7.2, 7.3. These are all again underplated material, high velocity and unprecedented thick. It is 20 kilometer thick, and that has implied a strong interaction between the crust and mantle, and massive erosion of the crust subcrustal level has taken place. So this way we can understand how the Kadapa basin have been exhumed from the deep seismic sounding experiment. It provides a lot of implications. So I am just showing the results and telling the most important findings in terms of tectonic implications, geological implications. Lot more implications, lot more informations can be extracted to understand and to fill the gap of our knowledge in different provinces of Indian subcontinent. This is one of the example I am showing from the Northwest Himalaya, very old deep seismic sounding profiling. We took the data sets and did some sort of modeling coupled with gravity data and found out a 4-layer crustal structure for which the Moho depends from 55 to 61 kilometer in northeast direction. And it shows some sort of implications towards the subduction of the Indian plate beneath the Eurasian plate. So these were a lot of informations we have gathered from the wide angle seismic experiments. We also did some work for ONGC into this Kutch region, and the basic purpose was to delineate the basement and overlying Mesozoics, Deccan Trap, and tertiary sediments, whatever way they exist, up to a depth of 4-5 kilometers. And that experiment was launched in 1994-96. We submitted the report. So we delineated up to 6 kilometer depth into that region because the basement was up to that much depth, and overlying whatever trap configuration, whatever Mesozoic sediments as well as tertiary sediments existed. But when we experienced in 2001 Kutch earthquake into this region 7.7 magnitude, we relooked into the data, and from the single fold wide angle refraction seismic experiment, we wanted to get some sort of image of the crust. And by doing that advanced pre-stack depth migration to the refraction data, which is single fold, generally doesn't give much better image. We need multifold data, but single fold data also from the data sets along these various lines. These are the line, A line, B line, C line. Along the C line, we could build a very good image. Again, we can see that what exactly happening from the coastal region to the interior, from the coastal to the interior, the Moho was increasing from 35 kilometer to 55 kilometer depth, or 45 kilometer depth. Here it is 45 kilometer depth. So we can see that crustal thickness has been increased from the coastal part at a 35 to 45 kilometer, and lot of reflectivity. And if we look into the reflectivity pattern, again, whatever I described earlier, that wherever we find that the sudden stop into the reflectivity, we define that is the end of the crust or crust mantle boundary or Moho. This also we have got it. If we carefully look into the seismic image, you can see that this portion has less reflectivity than the middle portion, again, this portion also has less reflectivity. So this reflectivity pattern change also indicate fault, and this fault was not exposed to the surface, and these are all the hidden faults that have been delineated by the single fold experiment data. And this is the location where we had that 2001 Kutch earthquake at a depth of 22 kilometers, and this fault might have played an important role for the release of accumulated energy into this region. And this reflectivity pattern also indicates that some sort of phenomena, what exactly has happened into the crustal level. And this reflectivity below the epicentral region, we interpret because of the compressive regime of the past 55 million years, or maybe there have been some sort of magmatic intrusion due to the Mesozoic rifting associated with the Gondwana breakup. So the combination of these or either of these, we need not, we exactly cannot pinpoint what is the main reason, but definitely the regime has been changed from the extensional regime to compressive regime into the past 55 million years has taken place, and that one of the reason or second reason will be the Mesozoic rifting of the Gondwana. This way, again, I am telling that wide-angle seismic experiment has been very, very useful to understand several phenomena what have gone into the subsurface. As a geologist, from the surface, we infer a lot of information about the subsurface, but it is the seismic experiment by which we can validate that, by which whatever riddle existed, we can provide some sort of answer to the question by using the deep seismic sounding profiling and applying that advanced tool, as well as their some sort of interpretation. It needs, of course, a person's geologic understanding, tectonic understanding, and how he is relating all the processes from the observed seismic data. This is another example I am showing that in the Nagaur part, we acquired lot of multi-channel seismic data for the deep crustal studies. So mostly we get the seismic reflection pattern, but later on the single folded data we have employed to the travel time tomography, and we are able to delineate some sort of two-layer sedimentary formations as well as Malani volcanics over a complicated basement. You can see basement is very complicated in this region, very shallow structure. Purpose of this experiment was investigation of the deep crustal structure, but later on we did the shallow investigation and delineated these two sedimentary formations with 2.2 and 4.2 kilometers per second, and then Manali volcanics and complicated basement configuration. What I am showing in this example, data were acquired for some other purpose, but we have done some other implications. In the previous example, data were acquired for the investigation of the basement and overlying sedimentary formation shallow structure, but we did after the earthquake the deep crustal structure. So it all depends on that whenever you acquire data, the data is like a treasure. Anytime the data can be relooked, the data can be reprocessed, data can be remodeled, and we can bring out some informations which were not known earlier or which are not extracted earlier. So a lot of things later on subsequently can be added towards the understanding of the science, towards understanding some sort of value, whether it is related to exploration of the hydrocarbons, mineralized or groundwater contamination, coal seam exploration, various purposes. So as a whole, if we look into the Indian subcontinent, we have a lot of deep seismic sounding profiling. I have shown some of the examples. Into this region, a lot of broadband seismometers have been deployed, and from the receiver function analysis, we have been able to delineate the crustal structure, velocity structure, as well as from the wide-angle seismic experiment, we have been able to delineate the crustal structure. So all these things, just we have clapped them together as a whole to understand what is the crustal velocity into the Indian landmass, Indian seal, what is the crustal variation, or we can say Mohawk configuration into the Indian subcontinent. Very clearly, we can see that if we look into the crustal velocity, that velocity roughly varies between 6.2 to 6.5 kilometer per second, and average the crust Moho configuration varies between 38 to 42 kilometers. But what striking features we get from this study, if you look into this southern part and this part, we can see that Moho thickness is around 42 kilometers, but on either side of the coast, crust is thin. Particularly beneath the Bengal basin, it has come to a depth of 34 kilometers. And if you go towards the western coast in this Maharashtra part, you can see it has gone to a depth of 28 kilometers. So like that, there are various sort of variations. This have been shown by different explanation have been given. Even if you look into Dharwar Ketan, eastern Dharwar 45 kilometers and eastern 35 kilometers, and western Dharwar we got 45 kilometers. So we can look into the crustal configuration in terms of crustal average velocity, in terms of crustal thickness. We see some sort of variation into this region, and their probable reasons and their probable explanation have been given in a review paper by Behra and Sen in 2006 Geological Society of India. And this compilation is an average compilation. If you look into detailed structure, there will be little different. But when we look into the average structure of the overall Indian landmass, we have brought out some of the feature in terms of undulation of the Moho configuration, as well as varying crustal velocity of the Indian landmass. I said that by doing wide angle seismic experiment, we delineate crustal structure, but how can I ascertain that crustal structure are well determined? When we have log data, well data, we can validate, but that can exist up to few kilometers. We cannot have up to a depth of 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, 22 kilometers, or 42 kilometers. So for that, if we really want to ascertain that the velocity model derived by the seismic experiment is correct or not, we need to do some sort of model assessment, and some sort of assessment strategy I will show over here. This is one sort of profile, and this is the data along the profile. And the same data we have modeled based on two different approaches. One is that node-based ray theory method. Other one is that cell-based finite difference method. By employing two different techniques to the same data, we derive two sets of model. And what we do for the model assessment, wherever we find commonality of the structure, that shows that model is quite accurate. So as a whole, what we can see from here, that the red part, upper Vindhyan, and the yellow part, lower Vindhyan, in both models are having some sort of commonality. Very high velocity material have come up to a shallow depth, less up to 1.5 kilometer, that's shown by blue. This also has seen in both models, as well as this side shows that red Deccan volcanics followed by basement, Deccan volcanics followed by basements. So this way we can do some sort of certainty test, model assessment test, or validation of the model, whatever we have built is correct or not. This way I have shown some of the applications of the wide angle seismic experiment over Indian landmass. And if you look into this figure, during the last 3 decades, there have been phenomenal advancements of the seismic tools, starting from 2-dimensional Kirchhoff-Richter depth migration, finite difference travel time tomography, wave equation Richter depth migration, common deflection surface stack, 3D surface related multiple elimination and inversion, reverse time migration, wide azimuth imaging. Then at now present, we are looking on the full waveform inversion and artificial intelligence. So I'll be showing quickly some of the recent tools of the full waveform inversion and the application of the artificial intelligence datasets. And these are some of the advanced tools that have been employed to different part of our Indian offshore and onshore. This already I have shown example of the common deflection surface stack. Also I have shown that 2-dimensional tomography. Also I have shown the Richter depth migration. This is one of the very good example of two-dimensional full waveform tomography or inversion, which is the present day tool. People are looking for two-dimensional, three-dimensional full waveform inversion, and this is some of the attribute computation by which we are able to delineate the reservoirs, whether the reservoir has gas, reservoir has oil, reservoir has gas hydrates. Depending on the presence of these different resources, they will have different sort of properties, different sort of, we can say, attributes. So this one of the attribute is seismic attenuation. By studying, we are able to delineate the reservoir properties. I also spoke that mostly we use travel time tomography, and then latest we are standing on the full waveform tomography. But why we are so much interested on the full waveform tomography? With this simple example, I will try to bring your attention over here. Simply, we have taken a subsurface model. This is depth, this is distance. Blue is the low velocity, red is the high velocity, and lot of finer details we have indicated by sprinkling the low velocity, so that there are a lot of fine structure within the low velocity zone, fine structure within the high velocity red zone, like that. And corresponding to this, we have computed, based on finite difference modeling, the synthetic seismogram in a vertical seismic profiling. That means we fire over here, and in the well at different subsurface, we keep some sort of geophones, and their record we get. This is the first arrival, this is later arrival. So this is the first arrival data. There are some sort of later arrival data, reflections data. So in the travel time, if we do the modeling, simply we pick up the travel time of the identifiable first arrival or reflected phases, and if we do the modeling, inversion, tomography, we are able to derive this type of model. As a whole, we can see the large wavelength velocity structure has been delineated for the blue, blue, red, red, and in between blue also has come, here also has come. So this large wavelength velocity structure has been delineated by the travel time tomography, but it lacks in structural details. Why it lacks in structural details? Because the travel time tomography has the resolution of the Fresnel zone, which more than that we cannot improve. But to the same data, starting from this tomographic model, travel time tomographic model, if we do the full waveform tomography, in which the all component of the seismogram, travel time, amplitudes, phases, frequencies are extracted, exploited, then we get this type of model. And here we can see all the finer details have been delineated. This is the beauty of the full waveform inversion, but at the cost of high computation, because definitely the data we can model so fast using the travel time tomography. If we want to model or invert same set of data, then by doing full waveform inversion, we have to pay a lot computationally, and we need to have a lot of time. I'm simply showing some of the examples of the full waveform inversion into Arabian Sea. One example I am showing from the Makran region. This is the seismic section where we have seen the seabed, and there is the BSR marker for the gas hydrate, over which high velocity gas hydrate layer exists, below which that low velocity free gas exists. By doing the full waveform inversion, where we are showing the final model, that model at these two locations have been shown by these two 4375, 4400, and we see that how in the full waveform inversion, the waveform, actual data, real data shown by blue color, and synthetic data has been shown by red color. We can see very beautiful match. Corresponding to this match, this has been shown for one CDP. We get this type of velocity model, all the finer details, as well as what is the thickness of the high velocity gas hydrate zone, what is the thickness of the low velocity free gas zone are delineated, as well as all the finer details. Likewise, we also did for one set of ocean bottom seismic data. Here also you can see the very nicely the synthetic data and the real data that has been shown by solid line, and the synthetic data that has been shown by dashed line. They are, you can see the very nicely superimposed. And corresponding to that, we have been able to build the solid line, their velocity as a function of depth. When I did the travel time tomography, we got this type of model. That model has been shown by dashed line. And we don't see any signature of the low velocity zone, which is nothing but the presence of the free gas zone. By doing the full waveform inversion, we are able to delineate that 125 meter thin low velocity free gas zone into this region. This is one of the example I am showing over the two-dimensional full waveform tomography into the Kerala Konkan offshore. In this Kerala Konkan offshore, beneath the volcanic rock, Mesozoic sediments were anticipated, and in this region, ONGC acquired wide-angle ocean bottom seismic data. They also made a drill into these locations, and if you look into the information derived from the drilling, below 1,600 meter water column, they got 2,000 meter thick tertiary sediments, 925 meter thick volcanic rock, and then a 95 meter thin limestone, probably Mesozoic, and after that 235 meter volcanic rock. They didn't drill further. Drilling is very, very costly affair, particularly in the deep offshore and through the volcanic rock. So they wanted to know whether by wide-angle seismic experiment, this thin limestone formation can be delineated, as well as their lateral extension can be delineated, and where is the basement. So to keeping three objectives in mind, that can we delineate the limestone formation, that 95 meter thin, below 1,600 meter water column, 2,000 meter tertiary sediment, 925 meter volcanic rock. So for that, we did again by conventional way travel time tomography wide angle seismic data, and we could delineate this velocity model that shows below 1,600 meter water column, this 2,000 meter tertiary sediments, and all these formations came or appeared as a single unit, the volcanic rock. We couldn't get any trace of low velocity zone by doing the travel time tomography, because already we said the travel time tomography has the resolution of the Fresnel zone, and 95 meter thin zone was not delineated. By doing the full waveform inversion to the same data, we are able to delineate this particular velocity structure that shows there are a lot of structure within the tertiary formations, as well as there is a low velocity zone sandwiched between two layers, upper volcanic rock and lower volcanic rock. And we can see at the well location that has been superimposed over here, the delineated low velocity zone corresponding to this is of the order of 115 meter. So 95 meter in the well, 150 meter is fine. And this is also able to delineate their lateral extension, how the low velocity limestone formation exists into this region. So our two problems by doing the full waveform tomography was solved, the delineation of this thin formation as well as lateral extension. Then where is the basement? Since we got a very accurate velocity by doing the full waveform inversion, we employed that very accurate seismic velocity to the pre-stack depth migration. Those who know pre-stack depth migration, it works very well when we provide proper velocity into the pre-stack depth migration. Since earlier model was not good, and by giving that velocity, we are able to get this type of pre-stack depth migrated section. By employing the full waveform derived velocity, we got this velocity image, and from this image we can see the basement has been imaged very nicely. So this way that problem is also solved. So like that, we have done some sort of wide angle seismic experiment. Now quickly I will explain maybe 5 to 7 minutes that what is the seismic challenge lies at this moment. We have seen to address several issues. The seismic data volume keeps on increasing. Seismic data processing has become very, very computationally intensive, and data interpretation has been very tedious. Mostly data interpretation is done manually. So even if data volume is huge, no problem, because of the high performance computing system, this has allowed processing of a large volume of data within a reasonable time. But interpreted struggle, particularly when the data volume is very big, when the data lies in a very subsurface complex region, when data are in 3D nature. So we tried just to get our data processing automatic. We create a flow, enter the data and set it and then run it, the processing done. We now try to see whether the interpretation process can be automated so that we can reduce the human intervention. So this question was posed, and to find answer to this question of automatizing the process of interpretation, we adapted artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is mostly used in the medical engineering sciences as well as many other fields of in our day-to-day life to automate the process. And for that, we have developed some of the flows and methodologies and approaches by which I will show quickly some of the examples that how we are able to delimit subsurface geologic features from the surface 3D seismic data automatically. What is that technique approach? I'm not spending time on this particular slide. Everybody knows that when you talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning, is nothing but it teaches a machine or computer from experiences without explicitly programming how to make accurate predictions when the data are fed to the system. There are several development has taken place since 2019 to recent: artificial intelligence, machine learning, shallow learning, deep learning, supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement. These are all available in literature. So if somebody wants to know, they can have the literature. I would like to show how we can adapt this concept of the artificial intelligence, apply to the seismic data and meet the objective. What is our objective? To automatize the process of interpretation. So for that purpose, we have done some sort of neural flow, and in that neural flow, for any other neural flow, it works based on there will be some sort of input layer, there will be some sort of hidden layer, and then output layer. In the case of seismic interpretation using artificial intelligence, we have to follow certain process, and the process have been listed over here step by step: seismic data conditioning, attribute selection, example location, neural learning, validation, run network. If somebody wants to know in more detail, I will give you some of the references so that they can understand at depth and contact us if they do not understand. Because of the paucity of this time, I am not taking all this process one by one over here. But in a nutshell, how can we automate the process of interpretation from the surface data? So this is the question. So I'm showing one example. Spend 2 minutes, very carefully listen to the slide. If you can understand, then rest of the 5-6 slides will be very easy to make it. Once we are given a 3D volume, within the volume, there may be different geological features, there may be faults, there may be channels, there may be intrusives, dikes or seals, there may be some sort of faults, gas plume system, there may be many other situation, even mass transport deposit present into the data volume. Let us concentrate that we'd like to know within this entire 3-dimensional volume, what is the subsurface configuration or architecture of the mass transport deposit. So what we can understand from this study is that, first of all, and when a person interprets, he should know, when we look into mass transport deposit, what are the attributes we should study that will be related to the mass transport deposit. That particular attribute may be related to other geological feature, but when you look into some of the attributes which may be common, which may be uncommon. So let us think that mass transport deposit, how they are distributed within this volume, and corresponding to that, within this volume, there are several set of input attribute. They can be low similarity, they can be variable depths, they can be low energy. Like that, there will be multiple attributes which can respond to mass transport deposit. So they are there into the data. By artificial intelligence, what we do, we amalgate or fuse all the attribute into a single attribute, and that single attribute we define hybrid attribute or meta attribute. since this meta attribute or hybrid attribute is associated with mass transport deposit, we are defining this is mass transport deposit cube meta attribute. So what is this mass transport deposit cube meta attribute? Is an amalgamation of all the attributes which are responsible to the mass transport deposit. So for that, automatic interpretation out of 100 volume of data, in the beginning we have take arbitrarily only 20% volume of the data, and within this data manually we find out where is mass transport deposit present, where is mass transport deposit absent. Where it is present we give the binary number 1, where it is absent we give binary number 0. So within the 20% data volume only we have given that 0 and 1, 0 and 1, depending on the presence of the mass transport deposit, these two binary number. And then all the attributes we fuse using this artificial intelligence and compute that mass transport deposit, which varies between 0 and 1. The computation of the mass transport deposit value is between 0 and 1, but observed value is only 0 and 1. Wherever present, it is 1. Wherever absent, it is 0. Then iteratively, the weight, the momentum, learning rate to this input parameter through the hidden layer, we change and compute the output, and we minimize the difference between the predicted and the observed value. Predicted value lies between 0 and 1, any value between 0 and 1, but observed value is only 0 and 1. Then we, at the all observation, we iteratively this process based on feed forward technique and back propagation method, we update the model and then minimize the error and got a plateau like this. When we arrive at the plateau and we find that this machine has been trained properly, then that particular model is employed to the entire volume of the data, entire cube of the data, and from there we are able to delimit the subsurface configuration of the mass transport deposit. So what we do in this case, out of 20% data, 70% data we use for the training, and remaining 30% data we use for the testing, just to see whether the prediction is going in the right direction or not. That way, the training and testing, we get this model only in the 20% volume of the data. And once we see that machine is trained, then that particular training now is employed to the entire set of data. And from the entire set of data, we compute the mass transport deposit cube. And that lies between 0 and 1. And we have decided the threshold value 0.75 and more than. So wherever in the volume, we have the threshold value 0.75 and more, we automatically get where is the mass transport deposit. So after the artificial intelligence or machine learning training from the entire volume of data, we compute the mass transport deposit, and mass transport deposit, that cube, meter cube value lies between 0 and 1, and we pick up the locations only where we got more than 0.75 threshold value. And this way, the delimitation of the subsurface mass transport deposit is built automatically. It's very easy and easy to apply in any sort of case. Now I will show one by one some more examples how we have been able, based on the same concept, that gas plume exists into the Murray Prospect of the offshore New Zealand. And this shows how the gas plume has migrated through the Papua group to Kapuni, to Mahakatinu, to Waiheke, and up to the seafloor. This is by the computation of the chimney cube meta attribute. So we have computed all the attributes related to the chimney and then fused them using artificial intelligence to compute the chimney cube meta attribute, and that picked up the value only where we have more than 0.75 meta attribute. This is another set of examples we have done into Waitara Prospect, where we have computed a lot of attributes which are responsible for the fault. Again, we have fused them into a fault cube meta attribute, and that fault cube meta attribute at the end, wherever shows value more than 0.75, we have picked up, and later on we have crept into the seismic section and show how the predicted fault are appearing on the seismic section, and they are also matching. And this is the fault network we have been able to delineate. If somebody want to interested, they can have this Journal of Applied Geophysics 2018 paper, Journal of Natural Gas Science and Engineering 2016 paper, or their Nature Scientific Report 2020 paper. These papers, we have described them. This is another sort of example where we have computed two sets of meta attribute. One is fault cube meta attribute, one is fluid cube meta attribute. By having a network of fault cube meta attribute, and we see from which fault part we are able to identify the flashes of the fluid. That fluid has been shown by yellow color and fault has been shown by red color. And that also, wherever we have been able to predict, the prediction have been superimposed onto the seismic section, and it shows very nicely it is matching. Wherever we are having a section taken from the volume and superimposing on the predicted fluid cube as well as fault cube, we see whatever prediction has done and whatever physically they are present. So this avoids the intervention of the human intervention. Machine does its own. This is another set of example we have done by computing seal cube meta attributes. And by doing so, same way, we have been able to understand what is the subsurface delimitation of the seal cube and how the outward movement of the magma look like, how lobes have taken place into the subsurface. And once we have taken seismic section and the predicted value have been superimposed, this is one of the section, and we show the prediction, and the prediction has been shown by red, and we see whatever we observed on the seismic section, the prediction is also matching on that. So this we have not picked up manually. Machine has done its job. And by doing this way, we have been able to understand how the saucer base, saucer shape, that seal exists into this region. This is the another example I am showing how the intrusive cube we can understand by computing the intrusive cube meta attribute, and how the intrusive cube played role to the overlying sedimentary formations. That you can see that it has modulated when it has intruded from below. It has modulated the overlying sedimentary formations. It provides a lot of implications for the hydrocarbon exploration, geothermal exploration, many other things. So this is the beauty of computing lot of attributes corresponding to intrusive, fuse them into a single meta attribute, and then at the end, if you have that meta attribute value more than 7.5, we can see that automatically the existence or architecture of the intrusive cube within the three-dimensional data volume come up of its own. This is the last example we are showing. Again, there is a combination of seal cube meta attribute and fluid cube meta attribute. We have shown the seal cube meta attribute by this brown color and yellow color, and we can see the fluid, how they have been flashed out, and all sort of phenomena we are able to understand to occurrences of the process, whatever has gone into the subsurface related to the seal cube related formation, related to the fluid cube expansion or plumbing into this basin. This basin is a Canterbury basin, and we can understand all sort of phenomena. And all these things, even you can find out this paper into this information into the Tectonophysics, this information in the Journal of Applied Geophysics. Like that, you can get all these informations. And if you eagerly wait to look more detail, what is the theory, what are the definition, what are different sort of attributes, different set of meta attributes, how we can compute the attribute, how we can fuse them, how we can generate the workflow, and then make automatic interpretation. You have to wait till winter of this year, and hopefully by end of this year, this book by the AGU will appear, and this will provide lot of exhaustive information, lot of illustrations to understand the concept of meta attribute and their application for seismic interpretation. This is a very, very handy reference copy designed for the benefit of both seismic professional as well as those who are pursuing research into the academia as well as universities to further advance the application of the artificial intelligence to the geoscience data. So in the finally concluding remark, we see that we have demonstrated a lot of advanced tools for the image enhancement as well as delineations of the subsurface features that can be used for various purposes, whether towards the hydrocarbon industry, whether for the earthquake processes, whether for understanding geotectonics, whether for giving any sort of interpretation related to mineralized phosphate, groundwater contamination, as well as recently we have extended this artificial intelligence concept for the computation of the susceptibility map of the landslide. Recently, because of the heavy rainfall, you must have experienced that Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh have experienced a lot of landslides. So we have studied a lot of parameters, and all these parameters again have been fused, have been made together to provide how we can accurately as well as quickly determine the susceptibility map of the landslides in Mussoorie town as well as Nainital town. We have done that. We have shown how full waveform inversion can be used for the delineation of the finer details, which cannot be done by the travel time tomography, particularly in imaging subvolcanic sediments. We have designed several workflows for the computation of the seismic meta attributes and shown that how we can do automatic interpretation of the subsurface geologic features from 3D surface seismic data. These have been shown only for the structural features, but it can be extended to any other stratigraphic features like pinch out, facies, channel levy, as well as some of the reservoir parameters or other parameters like porosity, permeability, saturations, etc. So thank you very much for patiently listening. I must thank this CSIR NEST for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts and views, and I will be very happy to accept some of the questions. And of course, I would like to give thanks to many of our sponsors who have given very valuable data sets, very valuable concepts, our international collaborators, international reviewers, so that we could come up with good sort of result based on the application of the artificial intelligence as well as application of the wide angle seismic experiment for geotectonics. In that context, Director General Hydrocarbons, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation Limited, New Zealand Petroleum and Minerals are acknowledged for providing 3D seismic data. Financially, this work has been supported by Ministry of Earth Science, CSIR, DST, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So I thank all of them for making it happen. And I also thank to all of my students who have specially worked very hard to bring out all these models of subsurface from the surface seismic data. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you very much for your updated talk on different geophysical and seismic tactics for solving different geoscientific problems. We have also nicely described possibility of application of machine learning and artificial intelligence in geoscientific areas. Now, may I request our session chairman, Professor J.R. Kyle, to put forward his final remarks. About the Professor J.R. Kyle, sir.
Oh, thank you, Shantanu. Yes, Dr. Shine, you have made us full. A remarkably an enlightening lecture with your vast experience and knowledge. Thank you so much. Wonderful. I think our younger generation will be much benefited and motivated with your lecture. Before I hand over to Professor Jhao, if he is there, I have just a small queries, one or two queries. That is, in the earlier literature, the DSS data interpretation did not show the, the southernmost south dipping fault, which caused the Jabalpur earthquake. Now your reinterpretation or refinement of the data or analysis has brought out that fault. Now I could not get the depth of that fault in your depth scale. I could not read it. What was the depth of that fault? Means down to what depth? You are muted, Professor.
Please.
So if you look into the seismic sections, we have shown a distinct difference into the reflectivity pattern from left to right. And that fault, what we have shown up to the Moho, because and it has not gone to the surface.
Yes. Thank you. I wanted to know that. My second query is, you have done very good work in West Bengal Basin or West Bengal, and did you find, you have shown the hinge zone, did you find any fault, any active fault or whatever? Did you get any fault?
Actually, if you interpret that particular data and you see that suddenly there has been break. So if you interpret, because it all depends on how an interpreter he is utilizing his knowledge of understanding. In that finite difference cell-based model, you get a smooth model. You don't get a very ray theory type of model that very sharp differences into the velocity structure as well as some sort of discontinuity. But if you interpret that, then you can find out, even if it is a smooth model, then model suddenly gets subsided or gets deepened. So if you think that is some sort of fault, definitely that is a fault. So this is your interpretation, and that's what we have observed into the Bengal Basin. And the hinge zone, whatever has been marked, and you can see at that point that subsurface basement configuration as well as other overlying formations get just shifted, but smooth, because the model in this finite difference cell-based model produces smooth model.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the clarification. I think now I hand over to Professor Jhao. You have done extensive tomography work, and Professor Jhao definitely has would have some comments. Professor Jhao, please.
Okay, thank you so much for a nice talk. I'm very much impressed by your nice works. And I have two questions for you. The first is that I found almost all the results you're shown is for p-wave velocity structure.
P-wave.
Right?
P-wave
Only
velocity.
p-wave velocity structure. Well, I'm and also Dr. Kayal, we are earthquake seismologists, and we use the data from nature earthquakes. We found just the p-wave tomography or p-wave structure is not enough. So usually we do p-wave tomography, S-wave tomography, and also Poisson ratio, because S-wave tomography and Poisson ratio are much more sensitive to crustal fluids, and the fluids are very important to trigger earthquakes. Okay, so usually we will determine at least 3 parameters: VP, VS, Poisson ratio, and also recently we also doing anisotropic tomography. Okay, I wonder if you can get some S-wave structure. Can you? I know you observe the P-wave, PP reflection, but I wonder there should be some SP reflected waves.
Yes.
Means reflected and also curved phase. Then maybe you could get a S-wave structure information. What do you think?
Thank you, Professor Jhao. This is a very good suggestions. But as you have seen that most of the data we have dealt with is the P wave, and that the data sets mostly they have only that single component data that time whatever we had. But presently that National Geophysical Research Institute is involved in the acquisition of the 3 component data, and you are very much correct that if we go ahead only based on the P wave tomography model, whatever, if we want to understand fluids into this presence of the fluid into the subsurface, to understand the earthquake processes, or to understand what exactly happened to the VP-VS ratio, without that S-wave component we will not be able to make it. So
Okay.
what we can do, even if we don't have some sort of P-wave data from the active source experiment, even we understand the resolution of the active source experiment is much higher than the passive experiment, but we get lot of S-wave structure into the Indian subcontinent from the passive tomography. So somehow, if we can have that large wavelength P-wave from the active experiment and the passive experiment joined together, and we can get or shed light what exactly happened to the VP-VS ratio, what exactly happened to the fluid content into the subsurface, because these are the very important parameters when we look into the earthquake. Particularly, again, Dr. Kayal also had pointed out into that region, that Kutch region at a depth of 22 kilometer, 24 kilometer, where that earthquake took place. Many people have given a thought that presence of fluids. Now, a lot of questions start whenever we say fluids, where from the fluid has come, what is the role of the fluid for the generation, where was the fault, all sort of things come out. But definitely, one experiment cannot answer to any sort of questions, and the more and more experiments, more and more data sets, more and more different approach, if we integrate, definitely we will get a better understanding of not only earthquake process, for any sort of process, even for exploration of the hydrocarbons, understanding geotectonics will be much more clear. Thank
Yes,
you,
you're
Professor Zhao, for a
totally
nice session.
Yeah, thank you.
We look
And
into
my second question is that you compare the travel time tomography and the full waveform tomography, and I found your travel time tomography image is quite smooth. Okay,
Right.
quite smooth means only have longer scale structure,
Yes,
but your waveform tomography shows a lot of shorter scale structures. I think the effect of damping and smoothing in the inversion is quite important. The effect of damping and smoothing regularizations is quite important, right? So I think in your travel time tomography, if you use a smaller damping and a smoothing effect, you can also get short scale structures. In your waveform tomography, if you use a slightly stronger damping and smoothing, you can also get a smoother image. So I think you should pay attention to the effect of the damping and smoothing.
Yes, I think this is very important point I have got from your suggestion, and definitely in the travel time tomography, whatever smoothing was there in the full waveform tomography, that smoothing was not there. So this is very important, that how we are giving horizontal and vertical smoothing into the travel time tomography as well as to the full waveform tomography. Particularly when we deal with the same sort of data, same set of data, maybe we have to look into giving equal type of smoothing for both full waveform or maybe in the travel time tomography. We look into that aspect, and maybe whatever large wavelength structure we have brought out by travel time tomography, maybe little bit improvement in terms of resolution can be done.
Right.
Thank you very much for a very good suggestion.
Thank you. Very nice work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Zhao and Professor Sen, sir. Now may I request Dr. Antara Sharma. May I request Dr. Antara Sharma for question and answer session.
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Antara.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Kalasan Sen, sir, for enlightening us with such an informative talk. Sir, now I am going to read out the questions asked by the participants across the globe. Sir, may I proceed?
You will be reading the question, eh?
Yes, sir.
Please do that.
Okay, thank you, sir. So first question is, why passive seismic exploration is often favored over active seismic exploration in geotectonically complex domains? What is the advantages of using passive seismic in a complex geotectonic domain?
You see, the answer lies to the question itself. First of all, an active seismic experiment, it needs the deployment of our active receiver at different locations. And then we need to blast, we need to artificially create that energy. So sometimes in a complex region or maybe in a difficult terrain, we have some sort of constraint for the blasting of the energy, number one. Number two, that amount of energy we blast, that guides up to what depth we can penetrate, we can get model. So these are all constant into the active experiment, which we don't have into the passive experiment. You have to just place that seismometer in some area, and you can get the data from depth of investigation of study can be anything depending on the earthquake. Number one. Number two, you need not shoot also, it will come of its own naturally. Then why do we go for the active experiment? I said that some of the resolution, some of the experiments, what we specifically need for the shallow investigation, towards the hydrocarbon exploration, towards the understanding of the finer details of the subsurface, we have to go for active experiment. But active experiment, because of the cost involvement, much more cost involvement than the passive experiment. And nowadays, the passive experiment also we are utilizing that noise tomography, etc. Equally well, a good model we are able to generate for the shallow depth that can be used for understanding various problems. So it is a balance. We cannot say that we be preferring only active over the passive, or will be preferring passive over the active, depending on the objective of your study, depending on what sort of, who is doing that sort of work, what he wants, what scale of the subsurface structure he want to delineate, he will choose either active or passive experiment he should do or not.
Thank you, sir. Sir, and the next question is, what are the applications or how can we use focal mechanism solutions in AI?
You see, AI basically a concept. Without explicitly programming, you can make the machine understand to predict the result. So what is the concept? If you understand and train to the machine, anything can be done. Machine will do its own. But whether it is focal mechanism solution, whether it is any sort of objectives, if you can understand that, you will be able to make the machine understandable without explicitly programming it. Anything is possible. You can do that, not only for the focal mechanism solution. Just like we did this automatic interpretation of the subsurface geologic features from the surface, when I presented here, my scientists who were working in the landslide, whoever working into this avalanche, they also know when they prepare the susceptibility map, hazard map, what are the parameters they consider. Just like I'll give you example susceptibility map, they will look into the slope, they will look into the curvature, they will look into the asperity, they look into the rainfall, they look into the presence of the fault system, they'll also look into the what are the different nearby road widening, other activities going on. So all sort of structure, then land use, land cover, all sort of parameters they study, they know, and then they have the program to compute the susceptibility. Now, when I said them that without programming, explicitly programming it, you make the machine understand, if you give these are the parameters, how he will be able to predict the susceptibility. So that way, if you train it, so like that here also focal mechanism solution, you can do that, but you need to understand what you are going to do. If that part is clear to you, anything can be done.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, and the last question is it possible to investigate very shallow depth by the seismic reflection method?
Very shallow depth.
Yes.
So this is again a very relative terminology, very shallow. What is the meaning of very shallow? Shallow means it can be meter, it can be kilometer, it can be tens of kilometers, even it can be how much shallow. So I can tell that shallow I cannot, when I say that by doing reflection seismic, we can investigate shallow structure better than passive. Basic concept lies into the frequency content of the data. The broadband data, wherever frequency, the frequency content of the active source experiment is much higher than the broadband seismometer. That's why we are able to delineate finer details. Again, that finer detail, if we compare with the log data, it can delineate much finer. If you look into the GPR data, ground penetrating radar data. So for everything, the shallow doesn't or thin doesn't have any meaning unless we specify what exactly we are looking for. So in one nutshell, what we cannot do for a shallow structure, if I say I can do using active experiment, if I do not understand up to what level, that Fresnel zone I have talked about several times, tomography, that sub-wavelength zone, that's generally seismic data. If we know the velocity, if we know the frequency, we can find out wavelength, lambda by 4, lambda by 2. And if your capability is of the order of lambda by 4, but you are looking for a structure which is lambda by 100, suppose, we will not be able to make it. So we have to specify that up to what scale we are looking for. Then this can be answered properly.
Thank you, sir. Sir, due to time constraints, we cannot proceed for more questions. So thank you again, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Antara. Thank you, Dr. Sain, sir. Now we have come to the end of the session. Now may I request Dr. Anessa Datta Hazarika for vote of thanks. Over to Dr. Hazarika.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar and good morning from India. On behalf of the CSR NEST family and the entire organizing committee of IVW GST 2021, I convey our gratitude and sincere thanks to Dr. Kalachand Sain, Director of Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology, India, for readily accepting our invitation and delivering such a wonderful and informative presentation today on the topic State-of-the-Art Seismic Techniques for Advanced Modeling and Interpretation, Solution to Some Geoscientific Challenges. Thank you, Dr. Sain, for enlightening us with your valuable insights and immense knowledge on the significance of the applications of various advanced seismic tools and models for the delineation and interpretation of subsurface structures, and thereby understand the geotectonics as well as assess various geohazardous processes and address some of the seismic challenges. Once again, thank you, sir, for such an educative talk. I also express my sincere thanks and gratitude to Dr. G. Narahari Shastri, Honorable Director of CSR NEST Jorhat, for extending his enormous support and guidance in conducting IVW GST 2021. I would like to extend my heartiest thanks to our international advisor of this workshop, Professor Andrew J. Michael from USGS, USA, for his valuable guidance and support. We are extremely thankful to our session advisor, Dr. Daping Zhao, well-renowned seismologist from Tohoku University, Japan, for gracing us today with his valuable presence, for being constantly connected with this program and providing unwavering support towards this workshop. Thank you, sir. I'd like to take this opportunity to extend our most sincere thanks to our session chairman, Professor G.R. Kayal, former Deputy Director General of GSI, and session co-chairman, Dr. Saurabh Borwa, Chief Scientist of CSR NEST, for their kind assistance and constant supervision and motivation. My deep sense of appreciation and sincere thanks to all the attendees who chose to be live with us today and attended with great enthusiasm and cooperation and made it a successful event. It is my pleasure to thank the convener of this workshop, Dr. Shantanu Borwa, for his immense dedication and commitment towards this event and for giving us such a good platform for the exchange of scientific knowledge with the stalwarts in the domain of seismology and tectonics from across the world. I also wish to express my deep sense of appreciation to the technical team and all the members of the organizing committee of IVW GST 2021 for their untiring efforts and hard work in successfully organizing this event. Finally, I solicit your continued support during the course of this workshop and look forward to see you all for the next session of the day at 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time. The speaker for the session will be Joe Gottsman from University of Bristol, UK, and the topic of his lecture will be New Insight on the Inner Workings of Volcanoes. With this, I conclude this session. Once again, thank you all for joining us this morning. Dhanyavad.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.